Good morning. So hopefully you guys got to go outside yesterday with the weather being so nice. Today's Tuesday. Today I need you guys to go through these particular notes. So you should have copied them down yesterday. You should have gone through a little PowerPoint review of them. So let me go through them real quick. And you guys will have some practice ones that go through this as well. So the next type we have is what is known as multiple alleles. And when we do multiple alleles, it basically means that we have two or more alleles that are responsible for the expression of a trait. So we know that each person only has two, one from mom, one from dad, but there also may be three or more alleles to kind of choose from or pick from there. And that's kind of how human blood groups are done. So you guys should know that with human blood groups, there are four different types of blood. So you've got type A, type B, type AB, and type O blood. With that, two of the three alleles are dominant to the third, but co-dominant to each other. And what I mean for that is that the three genes that are controlling blood type are A, B, and O. We say that type A is dominant over O, type B is dominant over O, which means that type O is going to be your recessive gene here, but type AB are co-dominant, which means that you're going to see both of them at the same time. They're not blended like that incomplete dominant, but we'll see both A and B. We'll talk about the proteins on them here in a moment, but you'll see both of them at the same time. And that kind of leads to who's our universal donor when you give blood, who's a universal receiver. So that will be the second page of notes that you guys copied. So you guys should realize that the key can be done two ways, kind of like our incomplete and codominance. And I don't care which way you guys do. I do think that this way is a little easier to write. But if you guys see keys that have the big I, or big I, little I, you should realize what that's looking at. So we just said that type A is dominant over type O. Because of that, I can have a homozygous dominant, big IA, or a heterozygous choice, big IA, little I, and that little I is that recessive one that's there. Type B is going to be the same thing, big IB, homozygous type B, or I can have a heterozygous type B, so big IB, little I, there once again, that recessive in there. Type AB is codominant, so one of the A's, one of the B's. We usually will stick the A before the B on that one. So big IA, big IB is my codominant choice. It's the only choice that I have for that particular blood type. For type O, it's recessive, little I. It's the only choice. So there's my homozygous recessive. The second way to write the key is with just the plain old letters. So AA or AO is your blood type A, BB or BO is blood type B. That little O there, once again, is that recessive gene. So if we look at type O, it's just little o. My codominant type AB is just AB. So either way, you don't have to write both out each and every time, but recognize and be able to recognize if you have one over the other. So I can say one parent has blood type O and the other parent is heterozygous type B. So the only time you have to watch whether you have heterozygous or homozygous is for those first two types, A and B. When you write it, you always want to write out the full key, and you're going to be like, well, I'm only using type O and I'm only using type heterozygous type B. Yeah, but the kids that you guys end up with in the F1 cross may be one of the other choices. So you still want to show all five or all parts of that particular key that you have there. Plus, it's just similar to going through and going, oh, I only need this part or this part. Just write the whole thing out every single time. You guys are still doing all 5 steps. We're still doing key, parent cross, Punnett square, genotype, phenotype. That is not changing. So my key I did with my letters AO, BB, BO, AB, and OO are those particular genotypes for my phenotypes of type A, type B, type AB, and type O. I'm crossing a parent who is type O, only one choice, little o, with a heterozygous type B. So that would be my BO. If we said homozygous, it would be big. Go in, once again, doesn't matter who goes across the top, who goes along the bottom. When you do your genotype, it gets a little longer now. They're going to start getting a little longer from here on out because the problem's going to get a little more in depth here. So you guys fill them all out. I have 2 that are BO. I have 2 that are OO. These are possible offspring. I'm not saying they're going to have 4 kids and that half of them are going to have type B blood and half are going to have type O. But what I do know is that they can have a child with type A blood. They can have a child with type AB blood. We'll have 2 or a 50% chance of having type B, a 50% chance of having type O. So why all this is important? Well, it's important for when you donate blood. It's important for when you receive blood. So with your 4 types of blood, here are my phenotypes, A, B, AB, and O. And what we look at is that each type of blood kind of has a little protein called an antigen on the outside of the cell. So if I say, oh, here's my red blood cell, and let's say type A antigen kind of looks like this. If you are type A, your body only recognizes that antigen, that particular protein. So if you're type A and you get this put into your body's like, oh, I know that one. That's what I have in my body. There's not a problem there. Type B has a different antigen or protein on it, so their protein may look something like this. If you're type AB, we said you're codominant. Remember, we're not blending them, but you'll see both at the same time. So you'll see some of the little arrows and you'll see some of the little Ys. So your body recognizes both of those. So you can get type AB blood put into you. You can get type B blood because you recognize the Ys. You can get type A blood because you recognize the arrows. Type O is a little special here. With type O, what we have is that it doesn't have any antigens or proteins. So the body, there's nothing there for it to recognize. So type O can be given to anybody. There's no proteins or antigens on there to kind of throw the body off there. So type O, we say, is the universal donor. You can give type O to anybody. So a lot of times if you're watching like medical shows and someone comes in from an accident and they're unconscious and they have to call up to the blood bank to send down blood, you'll usually hear them say, oh, send down type O blood for this particular person, because they don't know their blood type at that particular point. Type O doesn't have any of those antigens on it. If you give the wrong blood type, let's say you're type A and someone gives you type AB blood, your body doesn't recognize those little Ys. It gets through all your organs kind of pushing it through all the blood vessels. Your body's going to start fighting it off. It thinks it's an invader and eventually shuts down the organs and it kills you. So that's why these blood typings are so important with that particular antigen. Type AB is the universal receiver. They can get any type of blood. We just said, oh, I have the little arrows for A. I have the little Ys for type B. I can get AB, and O doesn't have anything, so they can get any type of blood there. But they can only give or donate to AB people. They can't give back to A. They go, oh, you got the little yeah, but they also have the little Y. So they can't give back to A. They can't give back to B. They definitely can't give to O, so the only people they can give to is another AB person. I believe on that PowerPoint I sent you guys, there's numbers there that go through and say, oh, okay, this is the percent of people that have this type of blood and so on. Type O is definitely the most common. Type AB is a little bit more rare with that. There's a second thing that you guys might realize that's on that blood as well, and that's called an Rh factor. So it's another major antigen in the blood cell, not as dangerous or as important as your antigens that we see here with your types, but it definitely does play a role, especially when my mom's pregnant and let's say mom and baby have different Rh factors within their blood. We'll talk about that more as we finish up genetics and work our way into some genetic mutations and testing for pregnancy and things like that. Rh factor, you can either be Rh positive or you can be Rh negative. So what happens is that Rh positive is dominant over Rh negative. Well, that just makes it a plain old dominant recessive or monohybrid cross that we had. So I can say plus plus or plus minus. There's my homozygous Rh positive. There's my heterozygous Rh positive. Or if I'm Rh negative, that's my recessive. So it's just a plain old monohybrid cross. So minus minus is my recessive. If you're like, I don't really like the pluses and the minuses, change it to a letter. Big A, or big A, little a. Little a, little a. This means the same thing. It's just what your key is representing. So eventually we're going to do something called dihybrid crosses. And I might say, hey, cross a heterozygous type B Rh negative person with an AB heterozygous Rh positive person. And now we're looking at two traits at the same time. And that's where it's going to get a little bit more complex. I should say a lot more complex at that time. But we're going to save those till after break. Okay, so from there, I kind of asked you guys to go through these couple practice problems. So if you have yet to do them, please stop here now. I'm going to give you guys a few moments. Finish these up and we'll be back in a few moments just to go through these problems. So see you in a few.